The silent graveyard captain, Elena Vasquez, stared at the tactical display, her coffee growing cold in the zero-gravity mug floating beside her command chair. The readings made no sense. 500 ships, 500 massive draconian warships that had vanished 3 months ago were now sitting motionless in the Kepler 442 system. Their hulls intact, but their engines dead. No distress signals, no escape pods, no survivors. The Draconians had been humanity's most feared enemy for 2 decades. Their empire stretched across 12 star systems, their technology decades ahead of Earth's ramshackle fleet. When news broke that their entire northern armada had simply disappeared during routine patrol, every government on Earth had celebrated. The war might finally be over. But Captain Vasquez felt only dread as she watched the silent fleet drift through space like metallic tombstones. "Ma'am, we're receiving new orders from Fleet Command," announced Lieutenant Torres, her communications officer. His voice carried the same unease that had settled over the entire bridge crew of the research vessel Prometheus. "We're to conduct a full investigation, find out what happened to them." Vasquez nodded grimly. She had expected this. Earth's military couldn't ignore such an opportunity, even if every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. "Set course for the nearest Draconian vessel. And Torres, make sure our quantum communicator stays locked on Earth Command. I want a constant data stream going home." The Prometheus approached the massive Draconian battlecruiser slowly, its hull, scarred from countless battles but otherwise undamaged. Dr. Sarah Kim, the mission's xenobiologist, pressed her face against the observation window. "Elena, look at this. The ship's life support is still running. Atmosphere is stable. Gravity generators are functional. It's like the crew just vanished into thin air." Chief Engineer Rodriguez ran his scanners over the enemy vessel. His weathered face showed confusion as he studied the readings. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of crystalline formations throughout the ship. They're not showing up on standard scans, but my deep resonance equipment is picking up something. The patterns are geometric, almost like a lattice network." Vasquez made her decision. "Prepare an away team. Kim, Rodriguez, and Security Chief Watson. Full environmental suits and recording equipment. I want every second documented." She paused, studying the alien ship. "And Chief, bring your heaviest cutting tools. Something tells me we're going to need them." The boarding party moved through the Draconian ship's corridors with careful precision. The alien architecture was designed for being 7 feet tall with 4 arms, making navigation awkward for the human team. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and their footsteps echoed in the empty spaces. Dr. Kim's scanner beeped constantly as they progressed deeper into the vessel. "The life support systems are working perfectly," Rodriguez reported, his voice crackling through the comm system. "But there's no one here to breathe the air. It's like they were maintaining the ship for ghosts." They reached the command center and found the first sign of the crew. Personal belongings were scattered across control stations. Half-eaten meals sat on workstations. A Draconian officer's ceremonial blade lay on the floor, as if dropped mid-action. But no bodies, no blood, no sign of struggle. Dr. Kim's excitement was palpable as she examined a large, crystalline growth that had sprouted from the main computer console. The formation was beautiful in its complexity, resembling a cross between quartz and coral, with internal lights that pulsed in slow, hypnotic patterns. "Elena, you need to see this. These crystals are organic, but they're also technological. They're interfacing directly with the ship's systems." Security Chief Watson, a veteran of 3 alien conflicts, kept his weapon ready as he examined the strange formations. "Doc, are these things alive? Because I'm getting readings that suggest they're processing information. A lot of information." Before Kim could answer, the crystals suddenly flared with bright light. The ship's communication system activated on its own, and a voice filled the command center. But it wasn't Draconian. It was something else entirely, speaking in a language that hurt to hear, words that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the mind. "Warning. Warning. The convergence approaches. Individual thought patterns detected. Assimilation incomplete. beginning secondary harvest protocol. The away team exchanged terrified glances. Rodriguez was the first to speak. "Captain, I think we need to leave. Right now." But it was too late. The crystalline formations throughout the ship began to pulse, more rapidly, and a low humming sound filled the air. The Prometheus crew watched their scanner readings change as similar crystal growths began appearing on their own ship, growing at an impossible rate from microscopic seeds that had somehow transferred during their boarding operation. Back on the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez watched the situation deteriorate rapidly. More draconian ships in the fleet were lighting up with the same crystalline patterns, creating a network of connections that stretched across the entire graveyard. Her quantum communicator crackled to life with an urgent message from Earth Command. "Prometheus, this is Admiral Chen. We've been monitoring your data stream. Our scientists have identified those crystal formations. They match descriptions from ancient alien archives we discovered on Proxima b. You're dealing with something called the Convergence, a cosmic predator that feeds on individual consciousness and converts entire civilizations into a collective hive mind." Vasquez felt her blood turn to ice. "Admiral, what happened to the original civilizations that encountered this thing?" The silence stretched for long seconds before Chen responded. "They were absorbed, every single one. No survivors, no escape. The entity grows stronger with each mind it consumes. Elena, you need to understand something. The Draconians weren't just defeated. They were converted. And now it's spreading to your ship." Dr. Kim's voice came through the communicator from the alien vessel. But something was wrong. Her tone was too calm, too measured. "Captain, we've made a wonderful discovery. The Convergence isn't our enemy. It's offering us perfection, unity, an end to conflict and suffering. We don't need to fight anymore." Vasquez grabbed the microphone. "Kim, get back to the ship immediately. That's a direct order." "I'm afraid we can't do that, Captain," came Rodriguez's voice, matching Kim's eerily peaceful tone. "We've been chosen. The Convergence has shown us truth. Individual existence is chaos. Only through unity can we achieve our full potential." Security Chief Watson's voice joined the others, all speaking in perfect synchronization. "You should join us, Elena. The fear will stop, the uncertainty will end, you'll never be alone again." Captain Vasquez cut the communication channel and turned to her remaining crew. "Emergency protocols. Seal all airlocks. Purge the atmospheric systems. And somebody find me a way to destroy those crystal formations before they take over the entire ship." Lieutenant Torres worked frantically at his station, his hands shaking as he monitored the ship's systems. "Captain, the growths are interfacing with our computer networks. They're trying to access our navigation systems, our communications, even our personal files. It's like they're learning everything about us." The ship's lights flickered as the Convergence tightened its grip on the Prometheus. In the distance, the Draconian fleet began to move, no longer dead vessels but components of a vast technological organism. The crystalline networks between ships pulsed with increasing intensity, and Captain Vasquez realized with growing horror that they had awakened something that had been waiting patiently for new minds to consume. "Ma'am," Torres reported, his voice tight with fear, "I'm detecting movement from the other Draconian ships. They're converging on our position. And Captain, I'm picking up something else. Energy signatures that match no known technology. Whatever the Convergence really is, it's not from this galaxy." As the first converted Draconian vessel approached the Prometheus, its hull covered in pulsing crystalline growths, Captain Vasquez made a decision that would determine not just the fate of her crew, but potentially the future of human civilization. She activated the ship's emergency beacon, broadcasting a warning that would reach Earth in 6 hours. But she knew that might not be enough time. The real horror was just beginning, and humanity was about to face its greatest test. Humanity's stand Dr. Marcus Chen sat in his cramped laboratory aboard the Prometheus, his coffee-stained notebook filled with desperate calculations. 3 of his crewmates had already been converted by the Convergence, their minds absorbed into the growing collective consciousness that now controlled most of the ship. The crystalline formations had spread through the ventilation systems like a virus, and the remaining 12 human crew members were trapped in the sealed sections of the ship, Chen had been studying the alien entity for 18 hours straight, surviving on stimulants and sheer determination. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. The convergence wasn't just a predator. It was ancient beyond comprehension, older than most galaxies, and it had consumed thousands of civilizations across the universe. Each absorbed species added, to its knowledge, its power, its hunger. But there's something it doesn't understand, Chen muttered to himself, scribbling equations on the wall when his notebook ran out of space. Every species it's encountered has been logical, organized, predictable. The Draconians were militaristic, the Xanthari were scientific, the Morlocks were artistic. But humans… He paused, a wild smile crossing his exhausted face. Humans are chaos. Captain Vasquez's voice crackled through the intercom from the sealed bridge section. Chen, tell me you have something. We've got maybe 2 hours before those crystal formations break through our containment barriers. Elena, I need you to listen carefully, Chen replied, his excitement growing despite their desperate situation. The convergence operates like a hive mind. Every thought, every decision, every action is coordinated and logical. It can predict and counter any strategy because it's absorbed the tactical knowledge of 1,000 species. But it's never encountered true chaos. It doesn't understand random, irrational, self-destructive behavior. Are you suggesting we act randomly? Vasquez asked, confusion evident in her voice. Not random. Human. Elena, do you remember why Earth's military strategies worked against the Draconians when we were outgunned and outmaneuvered? We didn't follow conventional warfare. We used guerrilla tactics, desperate gambits and plans, so insane that no logical mind would attempt them. The Convergence has studied every military strategy in the galaxy, but it's never faced human madness. Before Vasquez could respond, the ship's communication system activated. Dr. Kim's voice filled the corridors, but it was wrong. Too perfect, too controlled. Dr. Chen, your research is fascinating but ultimately futile. The Convergence has absorbed the tactical knowledge of 3,000 species. Human unpredictability is simply inefficient decision-making caused by inferior neural processing. We will adapt. Chen smiled grimly. That's where you're wrong. You see, the beautiful thing about human chaos is that we don't make decisions despite our emotions and instincts. We make decisions because of them. And that's something your perfect hive mind can never truly understand. As if to prove his point, Engineer Torres suddenly burst into Chen's lab, covered in crystalline growths but still fighting against the conversion process. His eyes flickered between human awareness and alien control as he spoke in 2 voices, simultaneously. Help. Me. Torres gasped in his own voice, then switched to the Convergence's perfect tone. Resistance is inefficient. Join us willingly and reduce your suffering. Chen made a decision that exemplified everything human about their species. Instead of running or trying to fight Torres, he grabbed the man in a bear hug. Fight it, Miguel. Remember your daughter's birthday party. Remember the taste of your grandmother's tamales. Remember being human. The crystalline growths on Torres began to flicker uncertainly. The Convergence had never encountered a species that fought conversion through emotional memory rather than logical resistance. For a brief moment, Torres's own voice broke through. The crystals. They're connected to the main network on the Draconian command ship. If you can disrupt the primary node… Miguel. Chen shook his friend, but Torres had already been pulled back into the collective. However, the damage was done. The Convergence now realized that human consciousness operated on principles it had never encountered. Captain Vasquez gathered the remaining crew in the sealed section of the bridge. Listen up, people. Dr. Chen believes our only chance is to embrace what makes us human. No coordination, no careful planning, no logical strategies. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to improvise, take insane risks, and make decisions that would terrify any rational being. Lieutenant Parker, the ship's youngest officer, raised his hand nervously. Captain, with respect, that sounds like suicide. Vasquez grinned fiercely. Exactly. The Convergence can predict logical behavior, but it can't predict suicide missions carried out by people too stubborn to know when they're beaten. Chen, what do you need to disrupt their primary network? I need to physically access the crystalline formation on the Draconian command ship, Chen replied. The one that's serving as the central processing node for this sector. If I can introduce a feedback loop using human neural patterns, I might be able to cause a cascade failure. And what are the odds of success? Vasquez asked. Chen shrugged. I have absolutely no idea. That's kind of the point. The remaining crew launched their desperate assault using tactics that defied all military logic. They split into groups of 1 or 2, each pursuing completely different objectives simultaneously. Some crew members created diversions by deliberately triggering alerts throughout the ship. Others began dismantling critical systems not to damage the convergence, but simply to create chaos and unpredictability. Chief Petty Officer Williams started singing old Earth songs at the top of his lungs while randomly rewiring power conduits. His actions served no tactical purpose, but they created background noise in the ship's systems that the convergence couldn't filter or understand. The entity had never encountered a species that used music as a form of psychological warfare against itself. Meanwhile, Dr. Chen and Captain Vasquez fought their way to the Draconian command ship, using a combination of cunning and pure human stubbornness. When they encountered converted crew members, they didn't try to outfight them. Instead, they appealed to buried human memories, sang childhood lullabies, and told dirty jokes that confused the logical alien consciousness. "This is illogical," came the perfect voice of the convergence through the ship's speakers. "Your actions serve no strategic purpose. You cannot win through disorder." "That's the beautiful thing," Vasquez replied, jury-rigging an explosive device from cleaning supplies and coffee makers. "We're not trying to win. We're trying to be human, and sometimes that's enough." Chen reached the primary crystalline node just as the convergence realized the true threat. The entity began desperately trying to coordinate a logical response, but human chaos had introduced too many variables. Some converted crew members were fighting against their programming triggered by emotional memories. The ship's systems were operating in completely random patterns. And most critically, Chen was about to do something no rational being would attempt. "Elena," Chen called over the communicator as he placed his hands on the alien crystal formation. "Tell my wife I love her. And tell Earth that the secret to fighting cosmic horrors is to be magnificently, irrationally, beautifully human." Chen opened his mind to the crystalline network, but instead of being absorbed, he projected pure human consciousness into the alien system. Memories of first love, childhood fears, the taste of pizza, the sound of rain, the feeling of sand between his toes, and thousands of other chaotic, irrational, perfectly human experiences flooded into the convergence's perfect order. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The convergence, built on logical unity and predictable patterns, couldn't process the beautiful chaos of human experience. The crystalline formations throughout the fleet began to crack and shatter as feedback loops cascaded through the network. Converted beings across multiple ships suddenly remembered who they were, their individual consciousness reasserting itself against the collective. Dr. Kim's voice came through the communicator, confused but human again. "Elena? What happened? I remember joining something, but it felt like a dream." As the convergence retreated in confusion and pain, humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not just survived an encounter with the cosmic predator, they had wounded it. The entity that had consumed thousands of civilizations had been forced to flee by the chaotic, irrational, impossible beauty of human consciousness. "Captain," Vasquez looked out at the fleet of Draconian ships, their crystalline formations dark and lifeless. Many of the alien warriors were beginning to stir, their own consciousnesses returning after months of absorption. Humanity had not just saved themselves. They had saved their former enemies and proven that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from order and logic, but from the magnificent chaos of beings who refuse to be anything other than perfectly, impossibly human. Earth would remember this day not as a victory of superior technology or careful strategy, but as proof that consciousness itself, in all its beautiful disorder, was the most powerful force in the universe.